Welcome, welcome everybody. Namaskar, hello, Tashidele. So thank you very much, Traviji, for your help. And then we can start with some reviews, some recaps of what we saw last time. Okay. Good. So you should be able to see the slide. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Very good. Perfect. So direct perception, I will try to go a little bit deeper into that. Okay, so just for the start, it follows that you can posit the definition of direct perception. I can hear too much the sound of the fan in front of me. Maybe I don't hear you well.
Cognition that discerns its object freshly.
Okay. Yeah, so that could be the definition of valid cognition, yeah? We could say. Yeah, for direct perception, we could say it's a cognition, yes, which is free from conceptualization and second, yeah. Okay, so we will see that slowly. Yeah. Okay, so if you remember well the preceding season that we had together, we saw that chart, yeah, existent and phenomena which are equivalent with it. If you remember well, we saw established base, we saw object of knowledge and existent and phenomenon. Okay, and also object of comprehension, shelja. Also object, yeah, we debated about that on Monday, yeah? Object. And object of comprehension of an omniscient mind or omniscient consciousness. And also hidden phenomenon. So that was very important because for Yonzin Purbuchak, that's different ways to ascertain the same thing, what exists. Yeah, so how do we know that something exists? It has to be observed by valid cognition. Yeah? So that's why we have first the objects themselves and what ascertains that. Yeah, so that's why we have ontology and epistemology. Ontology is the way things are. Yeah, so it's mainly about philosophy. What kind of objects do we have, what kind of phenomena and so on. Yeah? And epistemology is the way we know things or the way we don't know them. Yeah. Okay, so we are studying epistemology here because mind is so important. As you know, we saw that mainly the true sufferings and the true origins are about minds, and also the true path. The true path are mental event, yeah, cognitive event. They are minds. Yeah, so that's why it's so important. If we want to be happy, it's important to know what is mind, what are the impediments that we have in the mind, and how can we can correct them, yeah, as well. Yeah? So that's why it's important to know that. Okay, so we have the broadest category, which is cognition or awareness. Yeah. And it can be divided in mental factor and mental or main mind. It can be divided in very different ways. Yeah, like mistaken cognition, unmistaken cognition, valid cognition, non-valid cognition, and so on. Yeah. So we will go step by step into that. Okay. And we saw previously the definition of object, yeah, that which is known by an awareness, yeah, if you remember well. Yeah, especially Apollinala and Palavila on last Monday. Very good. So, and the main divisions are appearing object and engaged object, if you remember well. Okay, so there are the two main divisions, but in the texts, they speak as well about the apprehended object, which is very similar in the Gelugpa tradition with the appearing object. And the engaged object could be said also the object of comprehension. and the object of the mode of apprehension. So that's different ways to speak about the same object, yeah? So of course, in different translations, we could be confused because sometimes we see, you know, the apprehended object and the object of the mode of apprehension. So yeah, sometimes we could be confused, yeah, but if we know well the comparisons and the definitions, that should be okay. Yeah, okay. Because sometimes in some books you find the object of the mode of apprehension would mean the apprehended object. Yeah, so that's just a tiny point here. Yeah. Okay, so we saw the definition of the appearing object given by Gyalwag and Drupa, yeah? That phenomenon which is cognized through its mere appearance or its mere appearing. Yeah, we saw that. And also we saw the definition, one definition of engaged object of a valid cognition. Yeah? The object determined by the elimination of superimpositions by valid cognition. Yeah? Or we could translate like this, yeah, as well. The object with regard to which superimpositions have been eliminated by a valid cognition. That's another way to translate exactly the same sentence in Tibetan. Yeah? Tseme drodor chube. Okay, very good. So we saw that. We saw that the appearing object is, in one sense, how the object is acting towards the mind. Yeah, it appears towards the mind. Yeah. And the engaged object is the way the mind itself is acting towards its object. Yeah, it's engaging its object. Yeah, we could say so. So for the direct perception apprehending a boat, the boat which is the engaged object and the boat which is the appearing object are equivalent because we just specify the boat itself. Yeah? But on last Monday, if you remember well, how many points did we find when we compared engaged object of a direct perception and appearing object of a direct perception?
I think 4P.
Yes, we had 4P exactly, Palavila. Yeah, if we don't specify the boat itself, we can have 4P, yeah, in different types of configurations. Okay, very good, very good. And for the thought consciousness, yeah, the engaged object, because it's a boat, it's impermanent, it's necessarily not the appearing object to the thought consciousness, yeah, because the appearing object to thought consciousness is necessarily permanent, yeah, for the Sautrantika. Yeah, it's a rule, a golden rule, we could say. If it is impermanent, it's necessarily the appearing object to direct perception. And if it is permanent, it's necessarily the appearing object to thought consciousness. Yeah, that's an unbreakable vow, unbreakable rule for the Sautrantika. Okay. And we saw as well some short quotes, one from the Pramana Samuchaya written by Acharya Dignaga. Yeah, he says, Pratyaksham Kalpana Podham. Yeah, the direct perception is free from conceptualization. Yeah, we saw that. And also we saw that Acharya Dharmakirti in the Pramana Vinishchaya adds abhrantam, yeah, non-mistaken. Yeah, the direct perception is free from conceptualization and non-mistaken. Yeah? Okay. Yes, Palavila?
Could you just repeat the permanent, the unbreakable rule of appearing
Yes.
object?
Yes. If it is permanent, it's necessarily the appearing object to thought consciousness. And if it is impermanent, it's necessarily the appearing object to direct perception. Yeah, that's why we will see later, a bit later, why. Yeah, sorry.
It's
Please.
interesting that the appearing object is permanent or impermanent. It's not the object that is permanent or impermanent. It is how we are perceiving it, whether it's the thought or the direct perception. The object itself seems to be, I don't know. I can't even understand whether the object itself is permanent or does not even exist.
Yes, we could say that object is permanent because it's a generality whose instances are permanent and impermanent. Some instances of object are permanent and some instances of object are impermanent. Yeah.
Got it.
So
Okay.
it's like the organic rice and the non-organic rice. Who remembers that example, that illustration?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How could you explain?
If it is, even if inorganic rice pollutes the organic rice, it is, no, yeah, if inorganic rice pollutes the organic rice, it is fully inorganic. You cannot sell it as organic rice anymore.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, if you have a bag of organic rice and just besides you have another bag, but it's full of non-organic rice. Yeah, you take a handful of non-organic rice and you mix it with the organic rice. You cannot sell it as organic rice anymore. Yeah, it's polluted or contaminated by the non-organic rice. Yeah, so if you add permanent phenomena to impermanent phenomena, then the whole set is permanent, is the appearing object to thought consciousness. Yeah, that's why permanent always wins the battle. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So we could say appearing object as well is permanent. Yeah, because some appearing objects are impermanent and some are permanent. So the whole set appearing object is permanent. Yeah. Yeah. So we could formulate like this. The subject appearing object is permanent, but if it is an appearing object, it's not necessarily permanent. Like in Hindi, Januar is neutral, yeah, neutral, yeah. But if it is general, it's not necessarily neutral. It can be feminine or masculine, yeah.
Actually, Janwar is masculine.
Ah, sorry.
No, I made a mistake earlier. I had made a mistake. So Janwar is masculine, the word, but it could be a male or female animal.
Yes, exactly.
But the word Janwar is masculine in gender.
Oh, very good. Thank you so much. So it follows that the subject general is masculine, but if it is general, it's not necessarily masculine. Yeah? It can be a female animal. Yeah? Very good. Thank you so much. This example is so useful. Okay, so object is permanent, but if it is an object, it's not necessarily permanent. Yeah? Okay, fantastic. Fantastic. So now let's start to play. Okay. So, well, I guess that you don't know the definition of one substance. If you remember some previous debates that we had previously, or maybe you looked at the chart I sent in the WhatsApp. So the very first answer is the reason is not established. Yeah, okay, just to save time. Okay, so it follows that you know the definition of one substance.
The definition of one substance is phenomena which are produced as what is not diverse in terms of substantial entity.
Yes, very good. And the second one is much more explicit in one sense.
Okay. Or those which appear to direct perception and do not appear separately. Oh, that's much easier.
Yes, much easier. Yeah? And usually we tend to assert this one. Of course, the first one is not wrong. Yeah, they are not contradictory, but the second one is more is a little bit more clear. So they appear to the same direct perception, and they don't appear separately. Yeah, for instance, the color of the cup and the cup, it follows that they are one substance.
Except.
We'll say like, yes, they are one substance because?
Because they appear to this direct perception and not separate.
Exactly, very good. And we could say, oh, the person and the person's aggregates, it follows they are one substance.
Except.
Yes, very good. It follows that the subject, the two a table and a cup are two different substances.
Accept.
Yes, there are two different substances because
they appear separately.
exactly, yeah, fantastic. It follows that if they appear separately, they are necessarily different substances. Yes, wow, very good. Very good. Okay, so accept.
Yeah.
Opposite. And the subject, those which appear to a direct perception and don't appear separately. Yes, very good. Okay. It follows that the subject, those which appear to direct perception and do not appear separately, is the definition of one substance.
Accept.
Yes, very good. Okay, accept. It follows that the subject, the two, a cause and its effect are necessarily not one substance.
Subject, the two, the cause and its effect.
Accept.
Yes, one cause and its effect, not in general cause and effect, yeah, because cause and effect, they are one substance in general, but one cause and its effect, yeah, there are different substances because
They appear separately to direct perception.
exactly, it follows that if they appear separately to direct perception, they are necessarily different substances.
Yes.
Very good.
Can I ask,
Yes, excellent. Yes, please.
if it is one entity, the same milk turning to cheese is one entity, it's not separate, or milk turning to yogurt.
Yes. So we could say that one is the cause of the other. Yeah. Milk turns into yogurt. Yeah. So
Yes.
it follows that milk is necessarily not yogurt.
Yes.
And
Accept.
yogurt is necessarily not milk.
Accept.
So they are contradictory. And when one appears, the other cannot appear.
Okay. It's even, continue, the time, in time, even though the same object has changed, the
Yes, it's the same
time, it
continuum.
does not appear, okay. Like
Exactly.
a seed and sprout then is also the same.
Yes,
Okay.
very good. A seed and a sprout, they are necessarily different substances, yeah?
Okay.
Wow, fantastic, yes. Okay, so because a cause necessarily exists before its effect. Yeah, in the Buddhist tenets, only the Vaibhashikas would think that some causes can coexist with their effects. But if we follow the mainstream Buddhist tenets, we would say a cause exists necessarily before its effect. So it follows that the effect exists necessarily after its cause. Yeah. Otherwise, in order to produce jasmine tea, yeah, we could have just water and just boiling water, then we would have jasmine tea when we have the boiling water. Yeah, it's not true. Yeah, we need to add tea and jasmine and so on. Yeah, okay, very good. So it follows that a subject, an eye consciousness apprehending a mango is an effect.
Accept.
Accept. Who dares to say why? No debate? Okay, everybody accepts it. Okay, it follows that the subject, yes, an eye consciousness apprehending a mango is an effect. Okay, accept, very good. The subject, an eye consciousness apprehending a mango is an effect because?
Because the it is caused by direct perception of the eye consciousness, or because of the mango appearing to an eye consciousness.
Yes, we could say so, exactly, yeah, because the mango is one of the causes of that I consciousness, yeah. If the mango is not there, then we could not have any I consciousness apprehending it, yeah. Yeah. Okay, very good. Because it is produced, we could say as well.
Okay.
Yeah, the I consciousness is an effect because it's produced. Yeah, if it's produced, it's necessarily an effect. Yeah.
It's
Okay.
interesting.
It follows that if it is a condition, it's necessarily a cause, we could say as well. Yeah? If it's an effect, it's a condition. If it's a condition, it's a cause.
So in the previous, I'm sorry, in the previous, the mango does not produce the I consciousness. The I consciousness, um,
For
oh,
instance,
apprehending the mango. Okay, maybe
yes,
it has to be related, right? Because I consciousness already exists, but the relation is that the mango,
yeah,
because there was a mango, the I consciousness was able to see it, but it's not
yeah,
necessarily producing the I consciousness.
yes. For instance, do you have at that very moment an I consciousness apprehending my cup?
No.
No. And now, if I have put some magic, abracadabra, now do you have an I consciousness apprehending my cup?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it follows that if the cup is not here, you cannot have any I consciousness apprehending it. And if the cup is here, then you can have an I consciousness apprehending it. Yeah, so the cup is one of the causes of your I consciousness apprehending it. Yeah.
But can I have now, if you put your cup down, I have a memory that I saw the cup. My eye consciousness can recollect the memory. Is that not apprehending?
So it follows that your I consciousness can think about the cup.
Yes. Okay.
Your I consciousness can think or
It's
cannot
mental
think.
consciousness that can think.
Yes, Apollinaria, yeah, it follows that only a mental consciousness can remember.
So
Yeah,
even though I can like I can see the whole picture in my head,
yes,
it's actually my mental, it's completely mental consciousness. The eye consciousness is not involved in seeing that picture in my mind. Wow.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Yes. So of course your memory consciousness depends on a previous valid cognition, yeah, that your I consciousness had, yeah. But still, the remembering is necessarily not a sense consciousness, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
The souvenir, the memory can be done only by the mental consciousness, yeah. Yeah, is it okay for everyone? Very
And
good.
is direct perception only sense consciousness is capable of direct perception? That means thought consciousness is never a direct perception?
Yeah, for the Sotrantika, at least, yeah, it's not possible. Yeah, the thought consciousness cannot be a direct perception. For the Prasangika, that would be different.
Okay.
But, but for the mainstream, we could say the main tenets, a thought consciousness is necessarily not a direct perception because it is mistaken and it is not free from conceptualization. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, the direct perception is defined as
It is defined as non-conceptual and non-mistaken
cognition, yeah?
cognition.
Yes, very good. Yes, okay. So, yes, so it follows that if there is the cup, you can have an I consciousness apprehending the cup. And if there is no cup, you cannot have any I consciousness apprehending the cup.
Yeah.
Okay, so it follows that the cup is one of the conditions of your I consciousness apprehending it.
Except.
Yes, very good. Okay. So it follows that if it is a condition, it's necessarily a cause.
Why?
Okay, so it follows that if it is a condition, it's not necessarily a cause.
Except.
Okay, Palavila is more prasangika, yeah. But usually speaking, what is the, what is the, usually speaking, cause and condition are equivalent, usually speaking.
Oh, I thought there were many, like there has to be a preceding cause, like it has to be the projecting cause and those kind of things. So that's why I thought just because it's a condition, it's not necessarily a cause.
Yeah, because a condition is defined as a helper, pendogje in Tibetan, a helper, that which helps the substantial cause to produce its effect. Yeah.
Mm.
And also they would say, generally speaking, except for the prasangika, which is very specific, usually speaking, if it's a condition, it has to be a cause. It has to help to produce an effect. Yeah. So it has to produce an effect. It has to cooperate as producing an effect. Yeah. Okay. So, so it follows that if it is a condition, it's necessarily a cause.
Except.
Okay. I try to convince you, yeah, but you need to double check by yourself. Yeah? Okay, very good. Okay, accept, yes, fantastic. It follows that you can posit the three conditions of an eye consciousness apprehending a mango. Okay, I'm sure that among you, some already studied the Buddhist psychology with Venerable Gendam, so you already know them.
The mango, the immediately preceding eye consciousness,
Yeah,
and the
yes, Shaira. Okay,
I
I
think it
didn't
has to,
hear
so
you.
mango has to exist, has to.
Yes, the mango. Yeah, so here, for instance, yeah, we would say you have here an effect, yeah, which is an eye consciousness. Of course, it's very difficult to have a design of an eye consciousness because it's not material, yeah. So, so here, let's suppose that this eye would be the illustration of the eye consciousness, yeah. It's not true in reality because eye consciousness is not matter, yeah. But just to facilitate what we will see. So you have an eye consciousness apprehending a mango. You necessarily need the mango, yeah? So we will
Yeah.
call it the object condition, yeah? Alambana pratyaya, yeah? The object condition, yeah? That's we could say that's very important because if the mango is not here, we could not have any eye consciousness apprehending the mango. We could have a thought consciousness apprehending the mango. Yeah, and for the thought consciousness, yeah, if the object is here or not, it doesn't matter really. Yeah, but for the sense consciousness, they need something to be here, yeah, in front of them. Yeah. Okay. So you need also the eye faculty, the eye power. So here it's a drawing of an eye, of two eyes, but it's not really the case. It's a clear form. It's very subtle. It can be observed only by a clairvoyant mind. Yeah. Okay, so we will call it the dominant condition, yeah? Dakyen in Tibetan or Adipati Pratyaya, yeah, in Sanskrit. Okay, the dominant condition, yeah? Okay, and we have also the immediately preceding condition, yeah? Which is here an instant of mind, a previous instant of mind, of cognition, yeah? Okay, very good. So you have
The
those.
dominant
Yeah.
condition, you said it has to be a clear. What if it's not a clear, even if it's not, ordinary people don't have a clear, we are still seeing mango, we are still seeing all these things, right? Even if
Yes,
it's not clear.
it's a clear form. Dawa in Tibetan, it means that it is a subtle type of form. It's not demonstrable. Yeah, you cannot see by your eye consciousness. Even if you have some surgery, yeah, you could not see that directly with your eyes. You need to be clairvoyant to see that. Yeah, so that's why they say it's a clear form, Dawa. But yes, it could be damaged, like for blind people, yeah, there is a mango in front of them and they have the immediately preceding condition. But because of the lack of the dominant condition, then they cannot see the mango. Yeah. Okay. we could say for people, for deaf people, yeah, when we have some difficulty, some issue in the ear sense power, then you can have a beautiful music, but you cannot necessarily enjoy that. Yeah? Okay, very good. So the dominant condition is very important because it shows what kind of consciousness do we have. If it's a sense consciousness, the dominant condition has to be form, has to be a physical sense power. Yeah. And if we have a mental direct perception, then the dominant condition has to be mind, the cognition. Yeah. Okay. So we will see that slowly, step by step. Okay, then when you have the three conditions, then just after you have the effect, the eye consciousness apprehending the mango, yeah? Everybody agrees? Okay, very good. So let's go back to the debate. It follows that the subject, the mango, which is the object condition of the eye consciousness, and the eye consciousness, which is its effect, are different substances.
Accept.
Yes, very good. Accept. Yes. There are different substances because?
They appear separately.
Yes, they appear separately to direct perceptions, yeah? Okay, we could say because they appear separately to direct perception. Yeah, that's perfect. Very good. They appear separately to direct perception because?
Because they're different entities.
Yes, because they are different entities, we could say so. Because you remember, one is the cause, one is the effect.
Okay.
Yeah? Yeah. So, because the condition exists before its effect. Yeah, you agree with that, yeah? Okay. It follows that at the time of the effect, the condition doesn't exist anymore.
At the time of
yes.
the condition.
Yeah, because one exists before the effect, yeah? The cause exists before the effect exists after the cause. Yeah. So when the cause has ceased, the effect has a reason, yeah? Yeah.
Sorry,
so when
but
the
in
sprout,
just a very
when you have the sprout, the seed doesn't exist anymore, yeah?
Yeah, but in this example.
So in this example, you have the previous moment, which is the mango, which is the object condition, and the moment after you have an eye consciousness apprehending that. So it follows that at the time of the effect, the condition has ceased. Because you cannot have cause and effect all together. They cannot coexist, yeah?
I get it, yeah. I understand conceptually, but in practical, like I've held the pen.
Yes.
It is you see the pen, and
yes.
I'm still holding the pen, you're still seeing the pen. So are we saying that each moment that you're seeing the pen is a new moment, therefore it's not a cause and effect? That's why.
Yes, because the pen is changing moment by moment because it's impermanent, yeah? It's impermanent because it's changing moment by moment, and the eye consciousness also is impermanent, yeah, because it's changing moment by moment. So each cause of the eye consciousness has to cease when each effect in the eye consciousness has a reason, yeah.
So the immediately preceding condition is basically the constantly changing pen that is still in front of me, but oh, it's a new pen, it's a new pen, it's a new pen.
Yeah, the pen will not be the immediately preceding condition, yeah. The immediately preceding condition has to be mind. Yeah, yeah, has to be a previous instant of mind. Yeah.
Okay.
But still, yeah, this pen is an object condition. So because it's a condition, it's impermanent, it has to change from moment by moment. Yeah, and the eye consciousness as well. So each effect has to exist after its cause. Yeah, so the eye consciousness apprehending the mango, which was its object condition, has to exist after the object condition itself. Okay, well, a very strong introduction to clap in the hands. So it follows, okay, at the time of the effect, the condition doesn't exist anymore because, as we said, yeah, one has to exist before the other, yeah? The cause has to exist before the effect, yeah? Because it has ceased, yeah? Okay, so now we can clap in the hand very strongly. Well, it follows that the subject, the resultant I consciousness is apprehending a non-existent. Yes, accept or why?
Why?
Okay, so
So,
accept. So we have two answers, yeah, accept or why. So we could say XY. We mix both answers. Or YX. Okay. Okay. So if we say why, then it would follow that the subject, the resultant I consciousness, is not apprehending a non-existent. So it follows that the object condition still exists at the time of its effect. The seed still exists at the time of the sprout. Ah, no, says Chavila. No, because
yeah, in the case of seed and sprout, but what in the case of pen? I mean, it's still existing. Of course, the object that was the cause of the resultant I consciousness has ceased because it is impermanent and the pen is changing constantly. But we are not seeing that change in a pen, for example.
exactly, yeah. Yeah, we are not seeing the change because it goes so quick, yeah. It goes so fast, yeah. And because it goes very fast, it's a kind of inattentive cognition, yeah. It appears to the I consciousness, but the I consciousness is not able to ascertain that, yeah. Okay, so that's why Acharya Dharmotara would say, "Nunsungi toparjawa yon yun ni no kechimani topami minubichiro." He would say that the object of, you could say the object ascertained by the direct perception is the continuum itself, because one very short instant cannot be obtained by the direct perception of an ordinary being, we could say. Yeah. Okay. Still, the question can be very strongly asked. You know, what do we see at the time of the resultant I consciousness? Because the condition has ceased. So, if the condition has ceased, what does see the resultant I consciousness?
It
Yeah,
sees the previous moment of the appearing object.
it sees the previous moment of the appearing object, but the previous moment has ceased, is a non-existent at the time of the result.
Except, yeah.
Okay, so it follows that the subject, the resultant I consciousness is apprehending a non-existent.
The I conscious, so the previous moment had the three conditions: object condition, dominant condition, and immediately preceding condition. And
Yes.
it sees. Now the immediate preceding condition is the previous instant of mind. So yeah, so that means it saw it.
Yes, but if you remember well, you had the three conditions that they have to meet, yeah, the conditions. Like we could say, okay, you need to have the mango, that's very moment of the mango, then it has to meet the other conditions. Yeah, you have, so you could say like the previous instant, you have three conditions, they meet together during the previous instant. Then the immediately subsequent instant, you have the result, the I consciousness. Yeah. So one effect has been produced by the three conditions which existed in the previous moment, but they don't exist anymore at the time of the result. So at the time of the result, what is apprehending the I consciousness? A non-existent. So
It's
it
a
follows
mental
that
consciousness.
mango or horn of the rabbit is the same.
I'm a little bit confused as the wording of apprehending. I feel like apprehending is like present form. So actually, I feel like it's apprehended a non-existent that was before. But when you're apprehending, you're not doing that, the object condition that is not at this moment.
Exactly. Yeah, it's
Anymore.
apprehending now.
Well, you're not apprehending now because you apprehended a non-existent that existed before, isn't it? So,
But just before you didn't have the result. You didn't have the I consciousness apprehending a mango yet. Yeah, because it's coming at the subsequent moment. Yeah. Yeah. In the previous moment, you had the causes, the conditions, and the effect was not here yet. Yeah. So the effect could not be at the time of the cause.
Sorry, I joined late, but it is sorry, I joined super late. But anyway, it is not it's apprehending the object of apprehension. And because it is the consciousness is apprehending the object, it must exist.
Okay, but what kind of object is that? Is that the mango that that existed just before, or is that the
No,
mango
it
that
must be
exists now?
mental, and if it's the result, it must be a mental object in the mind.
Okay, so it cannot be an I consciousness, and an I consciousness cannot
Oh,
apprehend.
no, because it's the I consciousness. But still, if it's apprehending it, it must be existent. Wouldn't work.
Yes, so it follows that the cause and its effect can coexist.
No, I think the I consciousness is it's not, I consciousness has to be linked to the mind, mental. Apprehension can only take place inside the mind.
Yeah, we can say that an I consciousness is a mind, is a main mind. Yeah.
Yeah, so if it has clicked a picture, and it's like the eye has clicked a picture, and even though the mango is gone, the click of the picture is a mental consciousness, and it has apprehended that picture in the mind.
So it follows that no I consciousness can apprehend any mango. Only
And
the mental consciousness is able.
Sorry?
Only the mental consciousness is able to apprehend objects.
Mental consciousness needs the I consciousness to apprehend the mango.
Okay, so the I consciousness has to apprehend something, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, so what does it apprehend? Because at the time of the effect, you don't have the cause.
It apprehends the previous moment of seeing the mango.
Yes, but the previous moment is a non-existent at the time of the subsequent moment. Like Monday is a non-existent at the time of Tuesday, yeah?
But Monday existed. I don't know why you call it
Yeah, it
non-existent.
existed, yeah. It existed, but in general it exists, but not at the time of Tuesday, yeah? At the time of Tuesday, Monday has ceased, yeah? So Monday is a non-existent at the time of Tuesday, yeah?
If I just ask why, what would your answer to this be?
Why to that assertion, yeah, consequence? While it follows that the subject, the resultant I consciousness is apprehending a non-existent? Why? Yeah, we have to say why, yeah, because if we accept, then the mango and the horn of the rabbit, where is the difference? Yeah, there is no difference between a non-existent and a mango in that case. Okay, so we will try to explain that. Okay, Kevin and Bob are very interested as well. So the mango, in order to see the mango, you need for the mango to show some light, yeah, to reverberate some light to your eye, then to your brain, then to your mind. Yeah, okay. and the light goes so fast. So I'll try to say that in English. 299,792,458 meters in 1 second. Wow, it's more or less 300,000 kilometers in 1 second, yeah? So yeah, it goes so quick, but still there is a time gap, yeah? Mind the gap, like in Delhi Metro. Yeah, now you have a Delhi Metro, which is beautiful. And you have also mind the gap, like in any metro in London, Paris, and so on. Mind the gap. Yeah, there is a gap, a time gap between the cause and its effect. So how can we find a solution? Yeah. So the Buddhist epistemology would say that yes, there is a time gap. Even if the mango is very near from you, still the how do you say, the light takes some time, even if it's very brief, to go from the mango to your eye and so on. Yeah. So then we would say that the mango is showing an aspect to your mind, is casting an aspect to your mind. So that's why in the Trantika system, but also Chittamatra, and I guess maybe in the Madhyamaka, we would accept the aspect, akara. So what is that? What is that aspect? Do you hear me? Because everything was frozen on the screen. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, very good. So the aspect, akara, yeah, it's a kind of coin. You have an inwardly turned side and an outwardly turned side of the coin, yeah? So we could say that the mango is casting an aspect to your eye consciousness like a form on a molded wax or molding, you know, clay, yeah? So then the aspect is mind itself, and one part of the aspect is turned towards the object, one aspect is turned towards the subject itself. Yeah, so you have the apprehended aspect. The apprehended aspect is turned toward the subject itself. Yeah? And in if you have the apprehending aspect, sorry, I was confused. Yeah? The apprehended aspect is turned toward the object. And the apprehending aspect is turned toward the mind itself, yeah, the main mind, yeah. Okay, so you can find some details in recognizing reality. Geshe Dreyfus says it's self-cognition itself, yeah, that zinam, the apprehending aspect. And also in Science and Philosophy in the Indian Buddhist Classics, volume 2, you find also a mention that it is the self-cognition, yeah, for the schools that accept the self-cognition, they would say that it's the apprehending aspect, yeah, zinam in Tibetan, yeah? Okay, which allows the memory of the subject itself. Did I see a mango? Did I see a mango? Yeah, if I can remember that I saw a mango, then on the first place, my self-cognition was aware of the eye consciousness apprehending the mango, because there was an aspect of the mango in the eye consciousness. So that's why the eye consciousness is able to ascertain the mango on a real time, we could say, because it's ascertaining the mango through its aspect. Yeah. Okay, so that's a way for the Buddhist epistemology to bridge the gap. Yeah.
Is an aspect, does every single object have an aspect, existing aspect, or is the aspect the same for all objects?
So we could say that any form can cast an aspect to a sense consciousness. And for the thought consciousness, the aspect would be the meaning generality, would be the concept. Yeah. But still, you can have an object without having an aspect of that object if you realize implicitly that object. Yeah. So we will see that, like Kunkien Jemeng Chepa would say that in Lorik Tachu, in the decisive analysis of Lorik in Dribung Gomang, he would say that the definition of an explicit realization of an object by that cognition is that realization of an object by way of its aspect appearing to that cognition. Yeah, so if you realize explicitly the cup that I have in my mind, in my hand, in my mind as well, if you can explicitly realize that cup, it means that the cup is casting an aspect to your eye consciousness. Yeah. Okay. Very good. But also the beauty of mind is that it can realize an object without that object needing to appear to that mind. Yeah, that's an implicit realization. Yeah, so the mind can realize an object without that object showing an aspect, or without that object appearing to the mind. Yeah. Okay, I will show you. I will send you the slides as well. Okay, very good. So now,
can you just repeat what you just said just like a moment ago? Like
yes,
once
okay.
more?
Here about the explicit realization and implicit realization. An explicit realization by the mind is when the mind is able to realize something when that thing is not appearing to that mind. Yeah, when it's implicit. When it's explicit, that object has to appear to that mind. Yeah, for instance, when you joke with someone, with your good friends, you joke, like for instance, if I'm not really, you know, very lucid, then you can say, "Oh, Christophe, today you slept very well." Yeah, so you joke. So explicitly, what appears in my mind, what you say, but implicitly, what my mind realizes is the meaning of what you say. Yeah, that I'm not very lucid today. Yeah. Okay, so when you joke with someone, explicitly you verbalize something, but the meaning is implicit. Yeah, when you use irony, for instance, yeah, the meaning is implicit. So it is realized by your mind without that meaning appearing to that mind. That's the meaning of an implicit realization. And explicit realization, like written here, is when the realization of that object exists and that object appears to that mind. Yeah, that's its aspect appears to that mind. Yeah, is that clear? Very good. Wow, fantastic. Then just to, but I will send you the file here just to tell you that Kunkian Jameng Shepa gives another way, another explanation, but maybe we will not go into that. He's just explaining that there is an explicit realization by a direct valid cognition and implicit realization by a direct valid cognition as well. So when you have a realization by a mind, it can be explicit or implicit. Yeah, that's the way to assert that. I will send you the file after. Yeah? Okay, so that's why we can debate. We could say, okay, between direct realization and explicit realization, how many points? Among contradictory equivalent 3p, 4p, maybe
Sorry,
5.
did you say direct realization and explicit realization?
Yes.
Is that direct cognition?
Yes, when we say direct realization, we can say a direct perception which is valid, yeah, a direct perception which realizes its object, and on the other side, explicit realization. Wow.
4p.
But the
4p. 4p for Zygmunt Lau. Yeah, 4p. Who says 5, 6p? Okay. Wow, 4p, so it follows that you can posit a common base between the two, explicit realization and direct realization.
The
Yes.
eye consciousness apprehending the pot.
Okay. An I consciousness apprehending the pot. Yes, exactly. Okay, so it follows that the I consciousness apprehending a pot is explicitly realizing the pot.
Exact.
Okay, it's explicitly realizing the pot because
Because the pot is, actually I forgot the definition. Because the pot is there. It's a positive,
Yeah,
because it's a positive phenomenon. Can I say it like this?
Because it's
uh,
aspect.
yeah. Okay, because it's a positive. Okay. Yeah.
Because it's, yeah. Because
Yeah,
it's not realizing, no, I cannot say that.
yeah,
Because the aspect appears to the cognition.
yes, exactly, because the pot is realized by way of its aspect appearing to that direct perception. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Very good. Very good. But of course, we can debate that. Yeah, we can see that in knowledge and liberation, for instance, we can see that the subtle impermanence is casting an aspect as well. Yeah, to the I consciousness. But it doesn't mean that the I consciousness has to ascertain that. Yeah? So we could debate that. But still, if the pot is casting an aspect to the I consciousness apprehending it, then it realizes that pot explicitly. Yeah? And it's a direct realization. Yeah? It is direct because
It's a cognition that is free from conceptuality and non-mistaken.
yes, very good. Yeah, it is direct because it's free from it's a cognition which is free from conceptualization and non-mistaken. Very good. So you said four, Zigrunla. So it follows you can proceed. Direct perception which realizes implicitly its object.
Then I consciousness realizing the absence of the elephant in this room.
Wow, beautiful. Wow, wow, wow. Very good. Yeah, it follows that the absence of elephant in this room is not appearing to the direct perception.
Not except
Yes, it cannot appear to direct perception because
it's a negative phenomenon. Okay, because it's not apprehended via an aspect.
yes, yes, exactly. Yes, we could say because it's permanent. Yeah, the mere absence is permanent, so it cannot appear to a direct perception. It cannot cast an aspect. In order to cast an aspect, it needs to be impermanent. Yeah, in order to act as an agent that casts an aspect to the mind, it has to be impermanent, but a mere negation is permanent. Yeah. So it cannot be explicitly realized by a direct perception. We could say the selflessness for the yogic direct perception. Yeah, the favorite topic of Chetan Wamola. Yeah, the selflessness for the yogic direct perception. Selflessness is permanent. So it can be directly realized by the yogic direct perception, but not explicitly realized. Yeah? Implicitly realized. Wow, fantastic. Okay, so the mere absence of elephant in the room. Okay, very good. And now you can posit an explicit realization, which is not a realization by a direct perception.
My thought consciousness realizing explicit realization.
Yeah. Realizing explicitly what?
Explicit realization. The concept
Yeah.
of explicit realization.
Okay. Yes. Your thought consciousness realizing explicitly the explicit realization. Okay.
One of the
Yes. We can say the
Okay, my
uh,
thought consciousness realizing an apple. I can also say maybe it's easier.
yes. So okay, yes. Yeah, we could say that the thought consciousness can implicitly realize an apple, an apple.
Mhm.
Yeah, when your
Okay.
thought consciousness is explicitly realizing non-apple, then your thought consciousness is implicitly realizing apple.
Ah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay.
So we can say that the thought consciousness, yes, explicitly apprehending apple. Yeah. Yeah, in that case it works. Yeah. So of course, if we say that the thought consciousness apprehends an apple, we are not saying that the apple is the apprehended object of the thought consciousness. Yeah? Because the apprehended object, it means the appearing object. Yeah? So that's why when we have, for instance, the definition of a hidden phenomenon that we saw previously, yeah, that which is realized in a hidden manner by the thought consciousness apprehending it, it means that the thought consciousness has that object as its engaged object. Yeah, we are not saying that it has to be the appearing object of the thought consciousness. Otherwise, hidden phenomenon would mean permanent. Yeah? Okay, so drop it now. Drop it for now. Okay, so yes, a thought consciousness explicitly realizing apple. Yeah, so it means that the thought consciousness has the aspect of apple. And the aspect would be the meaning generality of apple. Yeah.
So is explicit realization always conceptual?
No, because we said before, we have a common base between direct realization and explicit realization. Yeah? If you realize directly and explicitly that cup, so it means that that cup is casting an aspect to your eye consciousness, and your eye consciousness is realizing that explicitly, yeah, through the appearance of its aspect. Yeah. Very
Yes,
good. So
yes.
that's why Kunkian Jamyang Shepa would say in the law literature that we have four possibilities, yeah, between direct realization and explicit realization. Yeah.
But now when we are
Okay.
looking for an example, which is an explicit realization that is not a direct realization, we are only looking for conceptual.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Conceptual realization of the cup. So then the cup is explicitly apprehended, we could say. So we have the meaning generality of the cup.
So
Very
that's like
good.
that when you said the mango is not the eye consciousness apprehending the mango, the previous moment of seeing the mango, that is an
Yes.
explicit realization.
Yes, when we say that the eye consciousness is apprehending the mango through the aspect of the mango, then the eye consciousness is realizing on real time the mango through its aspect. But the aspect is mind, yeah? It's never form. Yeah, it's the form taken by the mind of its object in one sense.
Okay.
Yeah, very good. So it follows that, yeah.
Sorry, can we also give the example here of the understanding of selflessness in an ordinary person's mind?
Yeah, we could say that it's an explicit realization by the thought consciousness. Yeah. So if you have the meaning generality of selflessness, then you have an explicit realization. Yeah. If it's an inference, yeah, inferential valid cognition. Very good. Yes. Yes. That's perfect. Yeah. And if there are 4P, you can pose it among cognitions. That which is not an explicit realization and that which is not a direct realization.
An implicit realization of subtle impermanence in a mental consciousness. I don't know if it works, but please.
Yes, yes, something easier to grasp maybe that when the thought consciousness is explicitly realizing pot, then implicitly it realizes non-non-pot.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, or if a thought consciousness realizes the impermanence of sound, then implicitly it realizes the non-permanence of sound. Yeah.
And can it
So
implicitly realize subtle impermanence? Is it possible?
yes, yes, yes. If you, some people would say, like for instance, in the pointing the way to reasoning, for instance, Selme Kensulo Sonta Chiripache would say that when you explicitly realize a definiendum, you implicitly realize its definition. So when you explicitly think about fire, implicitly you realize hot and burning.
But how would this apply to subtle impermanence?
So then you would, for instance, realize explicitly ketigma or momentary
Ah,
changing,
yeah, yeah.
and
And then
implicitly you realize,
implicitly, yeah.
yes, very good, that's fantastic. And
And
now
I have a question. What is the meaning of realization?
so
Realizing? Is it known?
yeah, we
Because
will
it's
see. I
so,
guess maybe in the next session, I guess we will see that to realize an object, it means to ascertain that object. It means to eliminate superimpositions with regard to that object. Yeah, Drundok Chupa in Tibetan, or Chedun Topa, to obtain its identified object. Yeah, so it means to cut superimpositions. It means realize, understand, and ascertain. Venerable Gensen said in Nalanda, at Nalanda, Nyewa, or ascertain, Shewa, understand, and Tokpa, realize, are equivalent.
but if we
Realize,
realize an
understand.
apple, we still might realize it as super, or have some superimpositions like that it is permanent,
Yes, that's
heartless.
very true. Very good debate.
Okay.
Yes, good challenger. Yeah, so it follows that only an omniscient mind has valid cognitions.
No, I don't agree on this, but I'm not agreeing on the superimposition.
Yes, very good. That's what we said on Monday. Yeah? We said that in order to eliminate superimpositions, doesn't mean that we need to eliminate all the superimpositions.
Yeah. It follows you can
Yes.
prove it which superimpositions have to be eliminated.
Yes, for instance, if you need to understand fire, you need to understand hot and burning. Yeah,
Oh,
so
is
you need
it?
to eliminate superimpositions with regard to hot and burning. But you don't need to necessarily cut superimpositions with regard to how it works, how many degrees it has, and so on.
It follows you can posit the meaning of superimposition.
Yeah, Drondok is something that is discordant with reality. Yeah? Samaropa in Sanskrit. Yeah? Some kind of something that hides reality in one sense. Like if I don't know, for instance, the one alphabet, then I have some superimpositions with regard to that alphabet. Doesn't mean that I necessarily apprehend the opposite of that. It means that I just don't know that. Yeah, superimpositions could mean I don't know that, or my mind ascertains the opposite of that, or is grasping at the opposite of that. Yeah, that would be better to say that.
You have to kind of understand the meaning. Yeah, okay.
Yes,
Of
exactly.
that thing. Like if you, as it realize fire, you have to understand it's hot and burning.
Yes, like for instance, if I grasp at fire as being cold, then this is a superimposition. And if I just don't know what is the definition of fire because I'm too young, I'm a baby, for instance, then it's another type of superimposition. It doesn't mean that superimposition is always grasping at the opposite of being that. Yeah, it can be just not to know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good. So to realize adigam in Sanskrit, there are many meanings. It can be also, yeah, I will send you some files about that. If you, maybe in the drive in the cloud, I will send you some short quotes from Recognizing Reality, which I found so useful. Yeah? Okay, thank you so much. It was very pleasant again. Sorry for the heavy load of information, but when we have some crunch on about that, when we have some grasp on that, then after everything becomes easier. Okay, thank you so much. It was a great pleasure, and take care for the sake of all the beings. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Yeah,
See you
everybody.
soon. Bye bye.